Hello and welcome. This is Heavy Business. I'm Aaliyah.
And I'm Curtis.
And today we have Estevan Vega of Capulet Entertainment. Am I saying that right?
You are. Good job.
Excellent.
How
Thank
you doing?
you. Thank you. Thank you for coming on the podcast, by the
Thank you for
way.
having me.
Of course. So Capulet Entertainment, Capulet Fest is coming up July 1st very quickly. But before we get into talking about the urgent up and coming things, I kind of want to go back a little bit and ask you about how you started Capulet Entertainment and what was your vision, what's your background, and what are you doing in the realms of metal?
Sure. So, Capulet Entertainment was started back in 2012. Um, it, so before I started that company, I'm an author. I've been an author for many years. Have several books published, and so when I was releasing my third book, Arson, which began a series of books, I wanted to do something a little different with the release. I wanted to have a concert. And so we had a lot of, we had like 6 or 7 hard rock alternative metal bands, which is a very weird thing for a book release, but I thought it was cool because I've always been a fan of music in general, and I love rock music the most. So I wanted to kind of bridge my two passions together for one awesome event. So that was back in 2010. And then skip forward another 2 years, 2012. I was doing a book signing at a local movie theater for some opening weekend of some movie. And a kid came up to me, said he read my book, he liked it. He heard that I had done a music show, and he was starting to get into promoting. And he said, "Hey man, you want to start doing promotions with me? I think with you know your your uh your business savvy with all that kind of stuff, and with my music prowess, that we could kind of do something together." And so I said sure, not really knowing what I was getting involved in fully. I just knew I loved music, and I thought it would be a cool way to kind of do another side hustle, I guess. So we changed his name of the company that he has started, and I came up with Capulet. And the reason why I came up with Capulet was, first of all, Shakespeare, obviously, Romeo and Juliet, right? But for me, what Capulet means is it's kind of like me chasing after this forbidden passion of mine that doesn't really make sense on any financial level. But it's something that I love. I love music, and I love doing it. I love bands, and I love working with them, and making stuff happen and bringing that culture and that scene to where I live, right? Ever since a young age, I always wanted to see that. So that's what Capulet means to me. It's me chasing after this forbidden dream that doesn't seem to make any sense, but I still love it anyway.
I
So
love that.
yeah, so our first show, um, we got everything together, and I got a phone call or a text message, and he's like, "I'm out, man. I can't do. I got a lot of stuff going on." And I'm like, "Bro, you're leaving me with the whole bag, man. We got the show in 2
No.
days."
Oh
And
my
so
God.
that was kind of like a rude awakening for me. I was like, "This really sucks." And then on top of that, our headliner didn't show up. They, I guess, somehow had double booked and didn't tell me, and I was just like, wow. So I had two strikes on the first event that we had done. Okay, so that happened, got that out of the way. I did shows for like another 7 or 8 months. And basically I was young at the time. So 2012, I was 23 or 22, and I was still living at my dad's place. I was basically just every weekend I was doing book shows, festivals, horror conventions, comic cons, signings at movie theaters, any, you name it, I was there. And basically I would take all the money that I would make from selling my books and throw it in at doing shows. And it was
One
very
side
hard.
hustle feeds the other.
Correct. And so literally my wife, who at the time was my girlfriend, is like, we were living on Taco Bell. They had like the $2 burrito menu with
Nice.
freaking Doritos and a drink. So
They
I mean,
never have those kinds of deals anymore.
they
Like it's
don't.
so overpriced now.
Yeah. So I lived on that, and basically I just every time I did an event, just prayed that I had enough money for gas to get to the next show. Um, and so it just got too hard. So I kind of put Capulet on the back burner. At the time, I was signed with a different publisher, and then I decided in 2014, when I was not promoting shows, to kind of go out independent and get the rights back to my books and release them myself. And so I released that under Capulet Entertainment, became the umbrella for all my publishing stuff. And then fast forward another 4 years, I kind of resurrected Capulet Entertainment as the promotion company in 2018, and we started booking shows again. And so then we did shows for another 2 years, and then COVID crapped on us, and I was out for another year and a half from that. And then we started back up again in 2021. And I've been going ever since. And then Capulet Fest last year was the first time we did it. It was still 2 stages, but it was only one day and it was inside. And we did it in Providence. This year we're doing it 2 stages, 2 days, indoor and outdoor, and we're doing it at Thompson Speedway. So that's the short and sweet.
Beautiful. Curtis, you got to follow up?
I do, but it's kind of like totally off topic. Well, kind of on topic. But me and Aaliyah were talking right before the podcast. We noticed there's an awful lot of Christian bands on the bill. Is that intentional or not intentional?
So I grew up in the church. I am a Christian. So
Same with both of us.
A lot of the bands that I grew up falling in love with, came from Tooth and Nail and Solid State Records and stuff, labels like that. And so a lot of my dream bands that I've wanted to book are actually on this bill. Like Norma Jean and Memphis Mayfire, Amber Lynn, Emery, like those are all bands I grew up, listening to. I actually named one of my characters in the Arson series Emery after the band. So yeah. Also fun fact, the original title of my book Arson was called A Boy Called Arson, and it was actually, that title came from Amber Lynn has a song called Glass to the Arson, and I was listening to that song and Under Oath, A Boy Brushed Red, Living in Black and White, and so I kind of merged those two and called it A Boy Called Arson. So I worked on that book for about 3 years, and the working title up until we published it was A Boy Called Arson. And at the last minute, I just changed it to Arson because I knew I wanted it to be a series, and I thought Arson was just easier to say. But yeah, so this festival is basically like my dream lineup. And I listen to Christian and secular bands, so it doesn't really matter to me. But I did want to incorporate a lot of the bands that I grew up and fell in love with when I was a college kid or a high school kid, So
cool. We're super curious. Okay, cool. Aaliyah, go ahead.
So speaking of the lineup and the explosive growth from last year, from a 1-day to a 2-day event.
Yeah.
Do you have any insight on how to put together what's the word I'm looking for? A lineup that will be most successful, I guess. I know there are some bands out there who do put together their own festivals with that same kind of idea that they want to put together a festival of the bands that they like. But
it doesn't always work.
Okay.
So definitely, I mean, I have to fall back on like the whole reason why I got into this in the first place. It was to bring bands to the scene, to this area, that usually didn't come through this area, or if they did, they would hit Manhattan, or they'd hit Boston, or they'd hit, they would skip Connecticut, and so I remember as a kid just wanting to go to so many shows, and my parents just wouldn't bring me because it was too far of a drive. And like, that sucked growing up. There was so many shows I wanted to go to. And unless they came through Hartford or New Haven, I really couldn't make it. Usually, and then once I got into high school, I was driving, once I hit like a junior year in high school, then I could go to more shows. But before that, there was a lot of shows I wanted to go to, and I couldn't go to them. So when I book shows, that's the place that it comes from for me, is wanting to see my area changed for the better. And I think music is a good way to do that. So when I book shows, I keep that in mind. It's not always about, money is always a factor, obviously, and this is a business podcast, so you get that.
Absolutely.
And to fuel any endeavor, you need money. But that's not the focal point, obviously with my
Sure.
name Capulet. I explained why that is. But so when I was building the festival for both years, right? Last year was the first year we were doing it. So a lot of the bands were skeptical to even do the show. A lot of them had not heard of me, even though I had been doing it for years. Um, they they would call there was one agent who called a venue that I worked with and just asked them about me. Do you know anything about Estevan? What's he up to? Like, is he a good promoter? All that kind of stuff. And the venue told me that they had reached out to him. So I think the first year is the hardest whenever you're doing anything like this. And then even this year, honestly, like we didn't solidify the whole lineup until like a month and a half ago. I mean, we had about 90% done for a
That
while.
is insane, but yeah,
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 it's crazy. I
yeah,
know.
yeah.
And the reason why, and it's funny, there was like 2 or 3 or 4 of the bands that ended up being on the lineup we had reached out to back in like January or February, and we were told no, it wasn't going to work. And then once this is what now I'm speculating, but this is what I think happened. Once they saw our securing of all the other bigger bands on the lineup, it was
Of
like,
course.
oh, we'll do it. You know what I mean? And I think that's the biggest thing. I think agents and management teams and venues, they need to see that you've done it before, that you've been successful, or they need to hear from other people about you and about your company and about the festival and all that kind of stuff. And then it kind of builds from there, right? So I think next year, I think it's going to go a lot smoother,
For
and
sure.
get done a lot quicker, But from a band's perspective or another promoter's perspective, if they're trying to do something like this, I would say before trying, like if I could go back and do it again, I would say probably before trying to tackle something of this size and magnitude, get more shows. Now, I had been doing it on and off for about 10 years. And so I thought like, sure, I have enough expertise in this. Let me just do it. But I think maybe I needed a few more shows of that were bigger with bigger bands. And then I don't know that I would have had as much of an issue or much of a kickback with the agents being skeptical. And I think, of course, now when they see this poster and they see the bands that we were able to secure, I don't think we're going to have that kickback next year.
So I've got a couple questions since you kind of brought these up about, newer festival, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Actually, my first question is, how the heck did you get ticket sales if you didn't have the lineup solidified? Or are you saying that you just started ticket sales a few weeks ago?
No. We started ticket sales a couple months ago.
Okay.
It was early
Cool.
spring. I think end of March,
Cool.
I think, or April.
Cool.
Because we had some bigger names already dropped. I did kind of a staggered lineup where like every day I was announcing a new band, and we did that for like a month and a half, basically. So, and then we also did tiered pricing. So the people who are the ride or die Capulet fans who've been to other shows that we've done, that was kind of my thank you to them. Like, here's the cheapest possible rate. Get in right now. And I would hype it and say, because I knew that we had these deals coming. It was just that we hadn't signed the paperwork. And honestly, it wasn't me. It was it was management and agents that take a long time. So I'm not sure if that's agents or managers or if that's the band waiting to see what other offers come in to see if this is worth their while. You know what I'm saying? I think, like I said, I think I'm still a baby festival. I'm not some of the bigger name festivals yet. I think we will get there. But I think that was part of the hesitation. But yeah, we were selling tickets for several months, but we did it tiered pricing, right? So I was trying to encourage early sales, telling people, and I would drop like, we had like a Skylit Drive and For the Fallen Dreams, and we had those types of bands announced early on. And then like every Friday we announced a big name, you know. And so that's kind of how we gauge the interest and got people to kind of buy in early.
So I'm not gonna say this is a dumb question because it's probably not a dumb question, but
Yeah.
let's say if you were, I realize you're fairly new at doing the festival game, but like let's say that you get the festival dates, you announce tickets for sale, and it's just not biting. What do you do in that case, or what would you do in that case out of curiosity?
Mm. Well, I can just tell you what we did, you know.
Okay, so you've had that happen where it's like nothing. Okay, cool,
Yeah.
cool.
Definitely tickets were slower at the beginning. And I've noticed this actually with all of the shows I've done. Maybe it's just a New England thing. I'm not sure because this is the only place I've ever lived, so I'm not sure how the rest of the world does it. But I do notice that the very reason why I was frustrated as an early teen into my 20s about the shows not coming here might be the challenge that I'm facing as a promoter in this area. This may
Mm.
be rocky soil and you just
Mhm.
gotta break through the rock. Um, it's funny, like 2 or 3 years ago, I was doing a show here in my hometown, and there's a grocery store that has like a big yard in front of it, and I was putting those like those metal fencing things that you nail into the ground, and then you
Yep.
can put, like, a lot of politicians will use them for their signs during campaign season and stuff like that.
Yep.
So I was trying to hammer one of those into the ground, which is very rocky in this area, with a sledgehammer. And it was not going well. I was there for like an hour and getting frustrated. And then my brother-in-law shows up with like one of those things that you put around it and you slam down, and then it goes down. And I just, at that moment, I thought to myself, like, you're trying, like, in my head, it came to me like, you're trying to break through rocky soil with what you're trying to do. It's not going to be easy. And legit, it has not one single show has been easy. And it's the same for this festival. Um, I'm sorry if I went on a little bit of a rabbit trail there. I kind of
It's a good story. I like it.
yeah, yeah. You asked me about like what I would do for,
What would you do? So like, there's
yeah,
no ticket sales coming in. It
sure.
sucks ass, and you just don't know what to do. What do you do in that case? Like when you got a show coming and no one's paying right yet.
Yeah. So I think at that point you just need more exposure. You need more people to have eyes on your event, right? So obviously, social media,
Yeah.
marketing that way, Spotify. Um, we did like YouTube influencers. We did
Oh, smart.
billboards. We did radio promotions and interviews. So I mean, we threw everything but the kitchen sink at this thing. Um, and I knew I had to break through the hard rocky ground with this. Um, yeah, it's hard, dude. It's a hard
I'm
thing,
sure. I'm sure.
and there's a guy who's been working on this festival with me with the lineup and everything, and he's like, dude, I got to give it to you, man, because I could not do what you do with the promoting. Like, it's hard. And I'm like, yes, it is. And it doesn't make any sense ever, but I love it. So it's one of those things. You do what you love, even when it hurts.
So, okay, that answered that aspect of things. So then, why the heck are you doing it then? If you feel that way,
Dude,
self punishment. I don't know.
maybe. Yeah.
I'm
I've
kidding.
I've lived a very bad life. I'm paying the price for it now.
I'm
No, because I think a lot of it stems from my faith. I want to see the world changed.
cool.
Um, I want to see I want to see the things that I wanted to see when I was a kid that I didn't get to see. And I mean, like, on a more spiritual level, like, I want to see people transformed. I want to see them whole and healed of their problems, and marriages restored, and suicidal kids not being suicidal anymore. So that's the spiritual side of it. And then just the regular natural side of it is just like, I love having a good time. Concerts have always been um a freeing space for me, you know.
Mm.
My wife and I went to so many concerts, and it's kind of so now we have a little one. We have a 17-month-old, and we both work full-time jobs, and we're doing the festival. So
That's
it's
so
it's a lot of
hard.
it's a lot of stress, and it's hard, and he's a lot of work, and he's the best, but he's a lot of work. And if we don't have a sitter, it's tough, right? But the last couple months, there have been a couple shows I wanted to go to with her, and she kind of didn't want to go. And I'm like, no, we're doing this. It's a date night. We're gonna have fun. And then it's always that we have a blast. Because I told her, I'm like, we're not getting old. I'm not going to get old. We're going to have fun. We're going to go to shows. It's going to be awesome. And our kids are going to grow up listening to live music. And I think that's a big thing too, is showing the next generation, like, how fun it is to be a part of, like, when you're there and the band is playing, and especially if it's a song that you love, right? But if you're there and that whole atmosphere and everyone is just jamming and vibing and like, it's so communal. It's so I don't know. I think it's like on another level. I think it takes you to like another place. And I think music can heal. And so I love it. And I have ever since I was a kid. So
Cool.
I guess that's why I do it, even though it doesn't make sense.
Good answer though.
Yeah.
Aaliyah, am I good to keep asking a few more things?
Oh, sure. I thought you were about to hand it off to me.
Go ahead, dude. You take over, and I'll ask my question later.
Well, I wanted to talk about a little bit how you're making the festival more sustainable. You've
Sure.
got a lot of food vendors, you've got the fireworks happening, you've made
Yeah.
it into like this real kind of spectacular event.
Mm.
What was your inspiration behind that? And kind of tell me about the extras that are going into it.
Yeah. So I always try to do something bigger and better than what I did before. Whether that be in booking, even with smaller gigs, right? Like, I always want to book a bigger band the next time, and do a bigger and better show. So that's one aspect of it. Another thing was that my wife really wanted to do fireworks. She's like, "You never take me to see fireworks."
Oh,
So she's like, "If we're doing this festival, we're doing fireworks, especially because it's on the 4th of
it
July."
is 4th of July weekend. So
And so when I met with the Speedway manager and he brought up fireworks at the meeting, like, "Hey, have you considered this? Do you want to do this?" My wife viewed it as, "Oh, confirmation. Like, someone else is telling you something that I already told you. I think you need to do it." And so that was kind of a losing battle if I tried to fight that.
it's like a
I
God
was gonna
wills
lose.
it sort of moment, right?
Sure. So it was that was on her. She came up with the fireworks. The I had always wanted food trucks and beer trucks and that sort of thing at this. So that was kind of a no-brainer. And the venue, when they have their oval events, because that a speedway. So what they do big events, not concerts necessarily. This is actually the first big concert that they've ever done. So they're kind of dipping their feet in the pond with me. I feel like I'm at the forefront of a war, and I'm taking all the missiles, and they're like, "Let's see how this does first. You do it," you know. But
Nice.
it's okay. I take risks, so I always want to do something bigger and better. So the fireworks was her. The food trucks, the venue is taking care of the food and the beverages side of things. And then we're also going to have some vendors there too, included, mix and match with the merch. We're having a few podcast people show up. So it's gonna be a good time. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun.
I have a question. So
Yeah.
you mentioned a few of the bands on how you picked them, but how did you
Mhm.
get like a band like All That Remains as a headliner? That's a pretty big band for a
Yeah.
second year festival.
Yeah. So we had been discussing them early on. I wanted to have several bands who were from New England on this festival, right? So All That Remains is
What do you think of
from
that?
Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Within the Ruins is from Massachusetts. Originally we had signed Great American Ghost. They were actually announced, and then right after we announced them, we got a letter from their agent saying that they were going to be in the studio, so they had to drop. So we had several bands from New England. In addition to a couple locals, we have some Connecticut-based bands too playing the show. We have I think one or two bands from Rhode Island. Yeah, so like I always wanted to have New England-based bands in addition to not like, because All That Remains is a national band, but they're from New England, So I wanted New England-based bands in the mix for sure. That's why.
Fair enough.
And All That Remains was just like, honestly, I I didn't think we were gonna get them. I thought that they might be skeptical of the festival. But luckily they gave us a shot. So I'm really stoked about that.
So one thing I wanted to ask, I don't think you touched upon it unless I like somehow didn't catch it. Did you how did you actually get that first big band to agree to be on the fest? Like
Mhm.
you talked vaguely kind of about it, but I don't think you actually said, like, how do you get that first big band to say, yes, I'll do it, when no one knows who you are skeptical,
Sure.
like you said?
So last year when I did the first Capulet Fest, we had almost had the whole lineup solidified, and then um I Set My Friends on Fire reached out to me to be on Capulet Fest last year. And so because I got them, then at the same time that I was finishing up the plans for Capulet Fest, I was also planning my September show, which was the Back to School Bash. And for that show, we had Alice Santa and a Skylit Drive. And so at the same time that we were finishing up doing the preparations for Capulet Fest, I was working on that show, and I had reached out to a Skylit Drive's management and agent, and she was the one who had contacted the venue about me and about the festival because she saw I Set My Friends on Fire on the poster. And so I think once she saw that, and once she saw the rest of the lineup and that the show was happening and all that kind of stuff, and then the venue had good things to say because I had done several shows there. That's what got me a Skylit Drive for last year. That's what I believe. And so this year, early on, they were one of the first bands that we reached out to. You know, it was really important to me that I reached back out to a good amount of the bands that we had already worked with in the past, right? So like a Skylar Drive, for instance. I had done other shows with Until I Wake earlier this year, so I knew I wanted to have them. Convictions, Set for the Fall. I'm sure I'm forgetting some. I'm sure there's several others that we've worked with in the past that I wanted to rework with again. And so I kind of started there, right? So once you get like, I hope no band takes offense at what I'm gonna say because I don't mean it in a derogatory sense, but like the mid card bands or the mid tier bands,
Mhm.
but they're known, right? So that's what we were shooting for. We wanted to get a handful of those and then secure the big boys. You know what I'm saying? And it doesn't please, this sounds
Makes
so
sense.
bad. I don't
That
mean it
makes
in a
sense.
negative sense to any. I'm not dissing any band. I love all the bands on the
You
festival.
mean in popularity and notoriety, how well
Correct.
known you are. It's not
How
about your
anybody could be
quality of
offended by
music,
that? Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
you know.
So once we got like, if you look at the poster, like the first two lines underneath the headliners, we secured all those, or 80% of those first. And then the All That Remains, the Emberlin, Norma Jean, Memphis, they all confirmed after. So it was basically a combination of utilizing the relationships that I had previously, hitting up those agents, hitting up those bands, and then once we secured some of those, then we actually had reached out to some of the bigger bands before I had even secured those, but it was more like hit us up again once you have headliners. It was like that, or at least once you secured one big headliner, then hit us up. And so once we got that, then it was like, then the dominoes started falling into place. You got to get a couple names on your thing first, and then the other things,
and there's the challenge. There's the
I
challenge.
know. So that's why it helped me that I had done so many shows previous, even if I didn't use all of the bands that I had booked in the past, right? Those relationships, who knows who in the industry, who, what I mean? This agent knows this guy, this agent knows this manager, all that kind of stuff. A lot of that stuff has been working for years that now I get to tap into. Do you know what I'm saying? And the more stuff you do, the more times people see your name, your promotion company, your band, if this is a band, that that speaks volumes. That they like. I was having a conversation with this about this yesterday. It's like people want to hear about you from like 10 other people who aren't you. You know
Yep.
what I mean? So if you can create a good reputation about yourself and stand behind what you do and do what you do well, people will have faith in you. It just takes time.
So I'm assuming that after this year, and maybe even for this year, you're going to be getting a lot of smaller bands reaching out to you,
Yeah,
Yes.
wanting
it's
to play the
it's happened.
fest. Okay.
Yeah, I even got some reaching out for next year.
There you go.
Yeah,
Well,
which is cool. Yeah.
I mean, there are fests that book things a year in advance, and there are fests that do things just the way that you do. And there are festivals that are changing things up to the last minute. So,
Yeah.
But as far as bands pitching you for playing your festival,
Yep.
does the email matter or the initial message matter? And if so, what should it be like?
Yes. So for me, like if a band is hitting me up, like yeah, it's kind of the same as how agents were with me. It's like, first, have I ever heard of this band from anybody? Right. That's the number one. If I haven't heard from them or about them through the grapevine, right? How is their music? I'll usually sample their stuff. So that begs the question, like, do you have music on the platforms, right? So I would
I
say,
really hope bands aren't hitting you up without music on the platform. Please tell me that's a
honestly,
joke.
dude, some of them hit me up wanting to be on the festival. They don't have an EP or any singles released like on Spotify or any of that. No music videos, like virtually no social media presence. And I'm just like, guys, like you're just not there yet.
That
Like
is the dumbest fucking thing I've
get
ever heard in my
like
life.
get the things in a row first, then it's like you
Okay,
gotta
so
go,
that's
you gotta go through basic training before they send you on the front lines. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely,
so
absolutely.
yeah,
So,
so yes, reputation, then quality of music, then I would say after that, it becomes like, okay, have you played Connecticut ever? Do you draw here? Um, how's your stage presence? Like, do I have any, are there any live, is there any live footage of you performing? Like all these things, like not one of them is like a make or break, but it's like, these are like simple things that every band could do relatively inexpensively, you know? Um, and, and honestly, if you, and no one likes to hear this, but like, you got to be able to bring people to the show. If you're coming to me and say, I want to play a festival, it's like, dude, can you bring 30 or 40 people? Like, and
I'll bring my mom.
sometimes it's like, no. And it's like, then I can't give you a spot, dude. Like build your fan base and let's talk. You know what I'm saying? Get some social media presence, get some Spotify streams, get some YouTube videos put up there and let me see that you're hardworking, that you're hustling, that you're like, I want to hear about your name. Like I want to hear your band's name. I want to see you on other shows that are in New England. Like for me, it's New England, right? So I want to see your name on the poster that's being blasted all throughout my social media feed. You know what I'm saying? And it's like that. So for me, those are all factors that come into play.
fair, fair.
But
Curtis, do you have
honestly,
any follow-ups?
I
but
do.
just to also not come across abrasively, it's like I've given a lot of bands a shot too, because
Yeah, of course.
I've been the up and comer. So
Of
there have
course.
been times where bands did not have those things, and I still let them play a show. But like a festival, I have to be more selective because it's like it's like it's a big deal. You know what I'm saying? And
100%.
the caliber and quality has got to be there when it comes to a festival. So I would say try to get in good. If you're a band and you're listening to this, I would say try to get in good with a local promoter. Show that local promoter or promoters, try to get in good with a couple, I would say. Show them that you can, pack out a small venue. Show them that you can stay until the headliner goes on. Don't
Oh
be
my
like,
goodness,
"Hey, I sold
yes.
I sold my merch to 5 people and now I'm packing up after the second band plays." Like that's not professional. I understand if there's a family emergency and one guy's got to go, but then have your bandmates should stay. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, someone needs to stay.
Correct, right?
The whole
Because
fucking band should stay.
I agree. That's what I'm saying. Like I
Yeah.
hate it when like bands play and then
Yeah.
their whole posse leaves after their set, and it's
The
just like,
worst.
man, that just kills the whole vibe of the show, man. We all stayed for you to watch your band,
Yeah.
right? So that's a big thing. Show me that you're not too proud to pass out flyers. Show me that you're not too proud to move some tickets, and then the cherry on top, give me an awesome performance, engage the crowd, show me that you're good, and it's a no-brainer for me to book you on another show. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. I feel like a hypocrite because I just realized I'm saying they should always stay, and then if it's like a 1 a.m. show, I'm out at like fucking 11 or 12.
But that's
Every
different.
fucking
You're not like
I'm just saying,
part of the show.
but I'm in the industry,
I mean, you
and
could be.
I'm basically.
I mean, Curtis Stewart, part of the show.
I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not good
To
at
some
it,
people,
but,
you might be.
but
I mean, 1 a.m. I understand. Like all my shows have ended at like 11 or 11:30. So it's like,
oh, you're not doing bar shows then? Okay, that's different. That's different.
yeah. I mean, so if you're checking out at like 8:30 or 9, it's
No,
like you're in the wrong industry, man. Like, what
no. I'm
you
talking
know?
checking out at like 11 or 10:30. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not. Yeah, fuck that. Where was I going with this? There was an actual
You
follow-up
said
question.
you had a follow-up question. Yeah.
I did actually have a follow-up question, and then we started ranting about people leaving early.
I know it's when we get off on these side tangents.
Yeah.
You know?
Was it about bringing on
Sorry.
giving a smaller bands a chance?
No, I know what it was. So
Okay.
so you were talking about bands that draw. So your festival is primarily metalcore. So you get a band hits you up because it's in Connecticut. They're fairly local, let's say, but they're like, I don't know, they're deathcore death metal band. Don't really fit the genre, but they could tell you that they can bring 100 people. They do really well. They just want to play a festival. They're not that big of a name, but they can draw and they can sell. Death metal band, not Cannibal Corpse, but what, somebody's there. Are you going to consider them, or is that totally out of the question because you just want to stick to the one genre?
So the goal for me for this festival was to, like, if it falls in the genre of rock, it's fair game. So like we have a band Nerve that's more like rock pop kind of.
Okay.
Very tame when it comes to rock.
Okay.
And then we have Within the Ruins and Convictions, and I mean that's heavy, right?
Mm-hmm.
We actually reached out to Impending Doom and Upon a Burning Body. We reached out to them. So we actually wanted to have some of the even heavier stuff on this. We just couldn't make it work, or they couldn't make it work for whatever reason. So for me, we were not actually super selective about, if it fell under the umbrella and we thought that it was a good fit, or we had a couple other bands in that vein, like we had Within the Ruins, and originally we had Great American Ghost. And so I was looking at Impending Doom and Upon a Burning Body. I was like, boom, boom, boom. Oh, and we have Convictions too. I was like, boom, that's 5 heavy bands. I think everyone will love them. So like that was the goal. And then if a band is unavailable, or if for some reason they can't make the show, you kind of have to recalibrate a little bit and say, oh, okay, maybe I'll go more in this focus, but we'll still have 1 or 2 bands. You see what I'm saying? So that's kind of how we approached it this year. It was, if it fell under the umbrella of rock, it was under consideration.
Okay, so even like if it was even like a rap rock band, you'd be okay with, or like a symphonic metal band, or okay, cool. Yeah. Just curious. Okay, so I'm assuming that you basically want to choose the bands yourself, though. You don't really want to be hit up. Correct?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
We did seek after many of the lineup. A handful, I would say maybe 15% of the bands hit us up and wanted to be on it. Okay. Or their agent hit us up, or management. We sought after most of them, but we definitely took others for consideration.
Cool. Okay, so my last follow-up on this section right here. I know we're running out of time. I am sorry, Leah. My last question here is, what bands are you wanting to get for next year?
Oh boy.
For a wish list that's realistic. Obviously, you're not going to be getting like Metallica or something like that. Sure. Well, I mean, if you do, that's amazing, but
yeah,
I'd be surprised if you can get
it. Baby steps, right?
Yeah. But like, who are those bands that you are going to be actively seeking that you think you could actually get it for a wish list, if you're willing to say?
Okay.
Like 3, rather.
All right.
3.
I would say Thrice, Skillet, I Prevail, Beartooth.
Big ones.
Okay.
Big ones.
Big ones.
But again, there's much more in my bazooka of dream lists that that we're not touching.
For sure.
100%.
You said 4, so I would say, like, we're off the cuff. If I'm picking 4, I'm going for those right now, you know?
A couple of them are attainable, I think.
Yeah,
I think
I
they
think
are.
so too.
They're all attainable. Just believe in yourself.
Well, I mean, like, there's a couple there that are pretty big. If he gets those, that'll be freaking
Yeah.
good.
I know
Yeah.
we need two of Aaliyah on the shoulders. Like, you can do it. No, really though, you can do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And then
I'm
meanwhile,
more
we go.
like the negative Nancy on both sides, being like, "What are you thinking, man? This is gonna be a disaster. This is crazy." I need two of her on my shoulder.
I'm positive, but I'm also like realistic at the same time. Huh?
Sure.
So Curtis is right in the middle. He's like, oh, maybe like a couple of them sound
Yeah.
realistic.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think that was all my follow-up, Aaliyah.
Yeah, we're actually pretty much out of time. So I just want to give you a few minutes here at the end to just promote the festival and the VIP options that you have available. So just take the floor.
Awesome. So the VIP option includes like better, nicer air-conditioned bathrooms, better like what else does it include? I know that there's VIP parking that's an option, and then which is closer, obviously, than having to walk from where GA parks. You get free festival merch. There's going to be an awesome Capulet Fest T-shirt. There's really cool VIP badges and lanyards. There's going to be a cool bag that you get with it. So that's the VIP option. Then we also have meet and greet add-ons. 6 of the bands have agreed to do meet and greets with the fans. Those are Amberlynn, Woe Is Me, Emery, Memphis Mayfire, Norma Jean, and a Skylit Drive. So for that one add-on per day, you get the meet and greets for all 3 of the bands who are participating in them that day. So I think it's a pretty sick deal.
Nice. And where do people go to get their tickets?
Yeah, CapuletFest.com.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much again for coming on, Estevan. This was a great chat. I learned so much. So yeah, thanks.
I had a great time. This was really fun. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. And everyone listening, thank you. And
Yes.
until next time, make like a bull and throw those horns up.
See you guys.